Governor John Vic Remulla has confirmed the arrest of his nephew, Juanito Jose Remulla, for the possession of illegal drugs. Juanito is the son of Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. In a statement, Governor John Vic Remulla said that Secretary Boying will not be intervening in the case of his son.
I think the calls for him to resign have no basis. You call for somebody to resign if he's not doing his job, or that they have misbehaved in that job. He has not done any of that. Quite the contrary. He has taken the very proper position that he is recusing himself from any involvement in the case of his son.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. The big story tonight.
Some Filipinos are now clamoring for the resignation of Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, with his son facing illegal drug charges.
But for President Bongbong Marcos, there's no basis for Remulla to step down. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza gives us the front seat to the story.
#Remulla resign trended on social media following the arrest of the son of Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. Juanito Jose Remulla III was arrested on Tuesday for possession of 1.3 million pesos worth of kush or high-grade marijuana in Las Piñas City. Despite this, President Bongbong Marcos believes that there is no basis for Remulla to step down.
I think the calls for him to resign have no basis. You call for somebody to resign if he's not doing his job.
Marcos Jr. explained Remulla made the right decision not to meddle in his son's case.
Being the Secretary of the Department of Justice, he is very, very aware that he must allow the processes of the judiciary to work properly, and that no one in the executive should interfere.
Juanito Jose Remulla III is now under the custody of the PIDEA. He is facing charges for importation of illegal drugs. The PIDEA clarified that none of the Remullas reached out to them or visited their detained relative. The agency also assured that they will treat this as an ordinary drug case. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
To help us understand this case better, we have with us via Zoom law professor Jed Recnang. He is a prosecutor and currently teaches criminal procedure at the PUP College of Law. Prof, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on The Big Story. First, give us an idea. How should this case against Remulla's son proceed? What are we expecting?
So, good evening and thank you for inviting me. So, this case, I believe, was already filed by the prosecutor's office before the courts in Las Piñas. So right now, it's up to the court. The process will now be within the jurisdiction of the court. It's assigned. Then the hearing will take place there in the court in Las Piñas City.
Okay, what are the common reasons why drug cases do not prosper, and how does this factor in to Remulla's case?
Well, the Supreme Court has decided that because when it comes to illegal drugs, we arresting officers here have to comply strictly with the provisions of the law pertaining to the chain of custody, like from the time the illegal drugs were seized until it's presented to evidence. So this must be complied with strictly. So that's mostly these cases were this procedure for inventory and the three-witness rule should be followed strictly by the arresting officers. When this is not followed or complied with, then cases would usually be the accused would be acquitted for the charges against them.
Mm-hmm. Now, given that, Professor, can you give us a further idea here? I mean, one of the major reasons, or more common reasons, as to why drug cases do not prosper in the Philippines is due to poor mishandling of or chain of custody at the same time. So discuss for us at least more details on this one, nuance it for us, especially specific to how that normally progresses here in the Philippines.
Well, again, it's up to the law enforcement officers. They have to make sure that the evidence that they obtain, they have to keep its integrity. That will make sure that That's the same evidence, the illegal drugs that was seized from the suspect until the time that is presented to the court. So, need to say all the time it's seized, time that goes to the laboratory for testing and kept with the evidence custodian, all of that should be properly identified and marked as evidence so that it will maintain its credibility and integrity. So that to prevent any tampering of this evidence, so that is Supreme Court has repeatedly said that this must be complied strictly by the law enforcement officers.
Given what you see, sir, how strong is the case against Remulla's son and the possible penalties? I mean, given also the history of how drug cases like these have been pursued in the past administration, carrying over to this one.
Well, I think I cannot comment on the strength of that case yet. I really have not seen cases. I just saw the news reports. But the important thing here is that the police officers that made the arrest here, made the seizure, they must be able to present those evidence, important, preserve the evidence. And then thickest penalty is it's quite high. I think it will be life imprisonment. It's an unbailable offense. So it carries a very heavy penalty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Professor, much has been said about how this case is going to be a litmus test on how the justice system works here in the Philippines, especially considering that you have the son of the Justice Secretary himself involved. So what do you think are the implications of this case and how important is the resolution going to be?
Well, it's a test of our independence, integrity of our justice system. So I think the Secretary of Justice has maintained that he will let the wheel of justice run without any interference. But I think right now the case is with the jurisdiction of the courts, so it's with the judiciary. So it is independent and separate from the executive department. So it will be interesting to see how this case will be. How this move forward, how it will be prosecuted. Yeah, but I believe they said that they'll treat it as a regular case, despite the personality involved. So I think we'll just see. I think based on what transpired, it appears that they're willing to let the justice process move ahead, move along.
Okay, one thing is for sure, all eyes will be on how this case will proceed. Again, thank you very much for your insights, Law Professor Jedrick Now. Now, right after the break, we'll get updates on tropical depression Neneng straight from Panahon TV. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Around the world due to the fact that it was too hot. It suggests the Federal Reserve will do more aggressive rate hikes,
yes.
Not start cooling it off.
Yes.
Strengthens the dollar.
Yes.
So right off the top of your head, how does this affect you now as you look at your next policy meeting and think, which way are we going to have to go?
Well, definitely, we may not necessarily match it, but we're going to do 25 basis points.
You're going to do 25?
We cannot do 25.
Oh, you cannot do 25?
Yeah. So it's really a question of whether it's 50 or 75. And I cannot say what we're doing because I don't know how the rest of the board will vote.
Of course, but 75 would be quite a step for the Central Bank of the Philippines.
Yes. So it's the advantage of 75 is it probably will reduce the pressure on the peso. And also reduce inflation, but in 18 months or so. But the disadvantage, of course, is that the economy has not really fully recovered yet from it's recovering from COVID, and we want that recovery to continue. to remain robust.
So the peso is down, what, 13% this year?
Yes.
Clearly it's a concern. How big of a driver is that part of it? Because your inflation rate is still high, but you have this worry about an economy that isn't fully recovered. So how much of a factor pushing you towards even doing a 75 basis point hike is the weakness in the peso?
Let me put it this way. If I've been told that the Fed is no longer raising the rates, I would say we've done enough already, because our forecast of inflation is that it's already target consistent. The path is already target consistent. That by 2024 we will be back to 3%, the middle of our 2 to 4% target. But this changes everything, because if this pushes the peso to become too weak, then it could add to the inflation. So clearly, what the Fed does has a very significant effects on what we will do.
All right, my colleague Heidi in Sydney is going to join with a question now.
Governor, there's been some talk amongst the G7 at least about the effectiveness of potential coordinated currency action. Is this something that you would support if the FX markets get more volatile, if currency reserves are becoming a problem?
President Bongbong Marcos says he has no plan of interfering on former Senator Laila de Lima's case. This following calls to free de Lima after the hostage-taking incident in Camp Crame.
I think urging prosecutors to do one thing or another is interfering. So that's why I have said we are very, very clear that we have the 3 departments of government that siguro naman hindi natin dapat pabayaan natin.
On her tweet on Thursday, de Lima said she never asked the president to interfere with the courts. Her only plea is for Marcos to order the Justice Department to stop blocking the testimony of recanting prosecution witness Rafael Ragos. In his interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Albay Representative Ed Salagman said giving such a directive to DOJ is not interfering on the part of the president. He would simply be using his executive power.
Kung uutusan ng Pangulo ang mga prosecutors na i-withdraw na ang kaso laban kay Senator de Lima sapagkat wala naman talagang sapat na ebidensya, ay iyan ay hindi pag-interfere sa husgado. Pero iyan ay nasa karapatan ng presidente bilang isang executive.
U.S. Senator Ed Markey voiced his support for the move. On Twitter, Markey called on the Marcos administration to junk the case against De Lima and to free the former senator. Markey believes De Lima was imprisoned on politically motivated charges for conspiracy to commit drug trading. The U.S. Senator urged Justice Secretary Remulla to remove De Lima's case and to officially recognize the lack of evidence against her. On Sunday, President Marcos had a private talk with De Lima following the hostage-taking incident. President Marcos said he asked De Lima if she feels safe at Camp Crame and offered to transfer her to another detention cell if needed. Marcos said De Lima declined the offer. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
President Marcos assures the public that government is ready to respond to the possible impact of tropical depression Neneng. In a press briefing, Marcos said that the government is closely monitoring the tropical cyclone in fear that it might intensify in a short period of time, just like Typhoon Karding in September. Now, according to government estimate, around 10,000 people could be affected by tropical depression Neneng.
Kailangan natin na merong magandang forecast para alam natin kung ano yung paghahandaan natin. We were already in place, actually, for the previous typhoon. So at least nandyan, it looks a little stronger than the previous one. At doon mas northern ang kanyang track. So nakabantay kami ng mabuti, but once again, I think the key to all of this is to watch it very closely.
Tropical Depression Neneng has intensified as it hovers over the Philippine Sea, bringing some areas in Luzon under signal number 1. Now, to give us more updates on Neneng, we have with us live on the show Francis Orsho, Panahon TV. Welcome to the big story, Francis. Can you give us updates here on Tropical Depression Neneng? Where is it now? What track are we seeing here?
Okay, good evening, Jester and Gretchen. So based on the latest forecast of Pagasa and its 5 p.m. bulletin earlier, the center of Tropical Depression Neneng was estimated at 795 kilometers east of Calayan, Cagayan. It has a maximum sustained winds near the center of Neneng of 55 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. So currently, the movement of this tropical depression is going west-southwestward at the speed of 10 kilometers per hour.
Is it true that it's possible for the tropical depression to intensify as quick as Carding did?
Yes, Gretchen, according to the latest intensity outlook of Pagasa, we're expecting this to intensify further into a tropical storm category by Saturday evening or Sunday morning. But for the following hours until tomorrow, the tropical cyclone will remain from its strength and in the tropical depression intensity.
Given that, when are we expecting TD Neneng to actually make landfall, and which areas will most probably be affected?
So we are seeing that this tropical depression Neneng will likely make landfall, but we are also seeing the possibility that this may just pass very close in Babuyan Islands or Batanes on Saturday morning or afternoon. So meaning there will be no landfall scenario.
Okay.
All right, what should we prepare for the weekend? What should we expect? And also your advisory for those in the coastal areas?
Gretchen, as this tropical cyclone continuously moving near the extreme northern Luzon and considering that the wind signal has been raised already, our fellow kababayans from the locations of the locations that has been raised of tropical cyclone wind signal number 1, which is particularly in Batanes, Cagayan, including Babuyan Islands, eastern portion of Apayao, and northern portion of Isabela, are advised to take all the precautionary measures during the 36-hour lead time given by Pagasa for preparation on the effects of tropical depression Neneng, like the effects of its winds and the intermittent moderate to heavy rains within 36 hours.
Okay, definitely something our kapatids up north should be keeping an eye on. Thank you very much, Francis Orsho of Panahon TV. Now let's pause for a quick break. After that, we'll take a look at the weightlifting academy established by no other than Olympic gold medalist Hidilyn Diaz. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Would we see those triple R cuts that you talked about before year end, and how would that really complement your monetary policy stance?
Well, of course the way it looks, the Fed is going to probably do at least 2 more 75s and maybe another 50. And in which case, for the Philippines, it's all a question of how much we will respond. Okay. The argument for not responding point by point is that our inflation rate is lower. But the argument for doing something bolder is that the pressure on the currency also has to be addressed.
Medalla, foreign exchange reserves are declining, and you have been intervening in the currency market. And I guess that's one reason why you do a 75 basis point hike, because you want to save those reserves. And as you know, the IMF has warned against saving your reserves when you need them. Is that what you're inclined to do? And are there other steps you can take to support the peso as needed?
Well, actually, what's on the table is a combination of using reserves, raising rates. Okay, so that will be on the table. And of course, if possible, some form of international cooperation. But as I said, I do not consider that to be very likely.
Are you like other, I mean, you said your economy isn't fully recovered. Your inflation is still high, but you need to move aggressively. Some global leaders have criticized the Fed for going on a path that is causing this kind of turmoil for other economies around the world. Do you think the Fed is moving too quickly? Do you think the Fed should recalibrate and maybe slow down the pace and size of rate hikes?
No, I think the Fed is totally entitled to address their own the problems of the United States. I completely understand why the Fed is doing what it's doing, because clearly its actions must be to achieve what is good for the U.S. economy.
So are there any other more supports, pandemic measures to support the economy? Anything else you think that the government needs to do that is needed to support the economy while you have to move aggressively raising rates?
Well, the government can reduce import restrictions on key agricultural products to alleviate the inflation, reduce the inflation.
I guess it all comes back to reducing inflation for everyone.
Yeah.
Governor Medalla, good to see you again. Would we see those RRR cuts that you talked about before year end, and how would that really complement your monetary policy stance?
Well, of course, the way it looks, the Fed is going to probably do at least 2 more 75s and maybe another 50. And in which case...
I'm Gretchen Ho, your Woman in Action. It's full preparation mode for Olympic champion Hidilyn Diaz as she looks forward to qualifying for the 2024 Paris Olympics. But while that is going on, Hidilyn has also been busy with her own weightlifting academy in Jala-jala, Rizal. More of the story in my report.
A 2-hour drive from Metro Manila brings you to the simple town of Jala-jala, where you can find Hidilyn Diaz's weightlifting academy. Heidi reveals she set up her training camp here in Rizal to teach young kids and to move away from distraction.
Bakit nga ba dito sa Jala-jala mo napili na mag-ensayo, magkaroon ng training camp?
Gusto ko dito sa Rizal kasi tahimik eh. Makita nyo naman, tahimik dito. Gusto ko rito, walang masyadong distractions. Malayo sa masasarap na gulo
But would you believe that even the Olympic gold medalist has been on the receiving end of complaints from her neighbors?
Kasi maingay eh. Maingay ang pagtapon ng barbell. So, ayun.
Hindi pa naman kayo napapaalis dito?
Malapit na. Pero tinutulungan naman kami ng munisipyo.
2022 has been an eventful year for Hidilyn and her coach, now husband Julius Naranjo, with the couple tying the knot last July. But with qualification events on the horizon, the couple reveals they haven't even gone to their honeymoon, a huge sacrifice in pursuit of Hidilyn's first World Championship title and the Paris 2024 Olympics.
Mahirap na ibalik yung lakas after mong manalo. Mahirap na magkaroon ulit ng motivation na mag-training, na ipagpatuloy pa rin ang pagte-training.
And And there's no lack of challenges for the Olympic champion, as Hidilyn will need to move to the 59-kilogram category, with the 55-kilogram division officially out for the Paris Games.
Gaano katindi yung kompetisyon sa World Championship?
So mas malakas ang kalaban ko, mas challenging. Ganun naman tayo, di ba? Mas gusto natin
Next level.
Next level.
Philippines, the win is over! The gold is yours!
Despite making history as the Philippines' first Olympic gold medalist in Tokyo, Hidilyn says the road to Paris will not be a walk in the park.
Siyempre, expectation ng iba na, okay na yan si Hidilyn, matandaan ha, hindi na kaya manalo. Yun lang mahirap. Mahirap na maghanap ng sponsor para tumulong sa amin.
Yun yung parang nakakagulat na sa tagumpay mo, nahirapan ka pa rin maghanap ng sponsor. Bakit?
Hindi ko nga din alam eh. Siguro yung mindset din kasi ng Pilipino na, babae yan, tapos na yan, nagpakasal na yan.
And for her 5th Olympic run, Diaz says she's fighting for the next generation of weightlifters. Here in Jala-jala, she's preparing kids for Batang Pinoy, a local competition where she herself started out. Now, among the young talents is her own niece, Samantha. Will Sam follow the footsteps of Hidilyn and be another pride of the Philippines? Get to know Sam and the rest of the kids of Hidilyn Diaz's Weightlifting Academy on Women in Action this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. on One News, and on Sunday, 8 p.m. on 1PH.
The all-new iPhone 14 is here in the country, and many Filipinos couldn't wait to get their hands on the new model, even if they had to wait until midnight. Justine Punsalang with the details.
People queued outside the mall in Makati City for the official drop of iPhone 14 in the Philippines. Among those who lined up is Ervir Kabiling, who camped outside the store as early as Wednesday morning. He says he is excited about the launch of Apple's newest phone. It has been his tradition to line up for new Apple products to get first dibs on the release.
Well, yearly ko siyang ginagawa since 2017, so it's good to have the launch na face-to-face na ulit kasi ever since pandemic, hindi na nagkaroon ng ganito eh.
Around 500 people lined up at the mall to get their hands on the newest iPhone. But it wasn't just in Makati. Other malls around the metro also saw plenty of individuals lining up to get the new iPhone model. The iPhone 14 comes in 4 variants: the regular iPhone 14, 14 Plus, 14 Pro, and 14 Pro Max. The cheapest one retails at about 62,000 pesos, while the bigger Pro models can reach up to 118,000 pesos. For News 5, Justine Punsalang, we are One News.
Napakamahal, ano?
At grabing haba ng pila despite the presyo.
Bibili ka
Ang
ba?
tanong, ikaw, bibili ka ba? I think for you, it's not a matter if you're going to buy, but it's gaano karami.
No, it's a matter of me getting my sleep. So, hindi po ako pipila.
Parang mas gusto ko yung tulog.
Diba? But, every year, the Apple brand offers something different. I think for me personally, as long as my phone is functional,
yes.
And what's more important for me is the memory is not consumed yet, then I'm okay with my phone.
Sa akin, basta nakaka-text, nakakatawag, okay pa yan.
Pero investment yan.
Investment pa rin yan. Especially for journalists nowadays.
Mukhang maraming pagdidebatihan ng ating audiences, and you can take the weekend to do that.
And that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.